This reminds me, don't throw pastries at people. Hello and welcome to Rugby League Happening, where we talk about the happenings in rugby league. I'm ZTank99, the person with the absolute worst facial hair decisions in the rugby league content sphere. Let's get into the news. One of the biggest incidents that happened this week wasn't involving any players, but actually fans, as a Dragons fan who was trying to make a pretty substantial TikTok decided to buy a meat pie and hurl it at Bulldogs fans. Now, there's a lot of discussion points to talk about. First of all, out of all the fan bases to do this, why the Bulldogs? Like, I understand that the Dragons and the Bulldogs do have a rivalry, but like, if we're to go off stereotypes about how fans certain act and which ones are more likely to stand on business, why would you do it on, why'd you do it to the Bulldogs? Now, going into the seriousness in this topic, I don't think it was really made to be anything properly malicious. It's just, unfortunately, an idiot trying to get a bit of views, which, I mean, I can understand wanting to, but doing that's a bit not great. However, very easily, this situation could have turned quite malicious. With being a meat pie, which was shown in the video of being purchased, you don't know how hot that thing is. And with stadium pies, they range from basically almost ice to the surface of the sun, so someone could have gotten burned. But also a few minor tinges, and this could have been possibly on the verge of a hate crime, kind of, depending on the situation, because a fair amount of the Bulldog supporters have lineage that goes to the Middle East, and a fair amount of the population is Muslim. Currently, right now in March, is the month of Ramadan, where obviously Muslims who are acting upon Ramadan do not eat or drink between sunrise and sunset for the month. So throwing food at someone who is possibly a Muslim during Ramadan's a bit, could have been interesting. And also, it was a meat pie, but if it was accidentally cheese and bacon, it's like, I'm not trying to say at all that he was meant to go for a hate crime or anything, but it's very easily that this situation could have ended up being a lot worse. However, according to a user on TikTok, this situation already was. This is on the TikTok account on the 7 News story about this, so I'll just read it from AGA Sports and Memorabilia. So here's the actual story. He actually threw an almost full beer can at them earlier, and if it wasn't deflected, it would have hit a lady with a newborn. Then security was informed and they did nothing. After that, he threw a meat pie and the cops were called and they spoke to him. Didn't even kick him out. Then he goes ahead and throws another 2 later and runs away, absolute grub. And then puts up an update saying the Bulldogs have been very helpful in regards to the matter. They will be taking it up with the NRL today. Police have been contacted and will be investigating, hopefully result in an assault charge. So first of all, this bloke's just a scumbag, but secondly, kind of just shows about the policing of rugby league games, because you even do remotely any of that at a soccer game, you're basically hung. Like, it's so weird, you can get kicked out of a soccer game for swearing or standing on a seat, but you can do all of this shit and get away with it, essentially. Like, it's actually quite ridiculous. So now I'm not trying to say that the source is false, but just every source you got to take with a pinch of salt because you don't know. But anyways, yeah, hopefully the bloke gets banned. Now we move on to an interesting story involving some of the heads of the Sydney Roosters, as the NRL Integrity Unit is investigating a complaint involving Sydney Roosters chairman Nick Politis and director Mark Bouris, because there was an incident at the NRL Vegas Nines competition this year. So a volunteer referee by the name of Mitchell James was officiating a match between the LA Roosters and the Brisbane Veterans, which the Roosters would end up losing 12 points to 10. James has come out and said that allegedly after the game, Politis and Bouris approached him on the sideline, and Bouris said, "I've seen a lot of football and that was a disgrace. You refed us out of the game." Mark Bouris actually confirmed that there was a confrontation, but said that there was no aggression. But he did say that he was upset with the officiating. There was a 9-0 penalty count, but they're just saying, yeah, there was no situation. So yeah, the NRL is investigating this, and honestly, with a 12-10 loss, I think some of those LA Roosters players need to come into the actual Roosters team, because Boy, that didn't happen in the NRL. The last time a team conceded 50 points in the first round was round 1 in 2009 when the Roosters copped it against the Bunnies. And unfortunately, it's happened to them again as the Broncos went absolute roughshod on them, where they ended up losing 50 points to 14. And honestly, at the beginning of the match, it didn't really seem like this was going to happen. Roosters scored a little bit against run and play with Dominic Young, but then as soon as Victor Radley got taken off for a head knock, it just went roughshod. But luckily, they weren't the only ones, as 2 other teams got battered with one other with plus 50 points. Manly Sea Eagles beat the Cowboys by 30 in a 42-12 win, showcasing how quite good the Manly Sea Eagles are. But more importantly, the Melbourne Storm and the Parramatta Eels, where the Storm almost scored 50 points in one half, with this score ending in a 56-18 win to the Melbourne Storm. And it's just, we kind of setting up a little bit of a spoon bowl here. But yeah, this is a pretty serious thing, especially when it comes to the context of Dylan Brown and the Newcastle Knights, where the Newcastle Knights have come out and said that there is still the offer on the table, the $1.3 million for 10 years, which would be the most expensive deal in rugby league history, is still on the table there for Dylan Brown, which, as a Knights fan, I must need to say, why? like, I think Fletcher Sharp did okay in the game against the Tigers. I mean, granted, it was a pretty interesting game. Like, the refereeing was quite bad. Tigers got an 8-0 standing ovation at halftime, which was... I'm glad the window of opportunity opens up for teams like this and then immediately shuts about 40 minutes later. But this has been an issue for the Knights ever since they came into the NRL, specifically about wanting to pay probably more than market value for players from outside of the Hunter region and then just not playing them at all. Like, you've got Fletcher Sharp right there at year 6 from Cessnock, converted into a 5'8", and actually, I think, did quite well in the role. And then there's a possibility he could get replaced. But, I mean, we've still got like 9 more rounds before this deadline hits of where, if Dylan Brown wants to leave for 2026, that's when the decision needs to be made. But in all honesty, I reckon Dylan Brown will just stay in Sydney. Now we move on to an interesting situation that's developed with the Gold Coast Titans as they prepare for their first match of the Rugby League season. So obviously the Titans had a bye in round 1, but have been forced right now to relocate to Sydney ahead of their Sunday clash against the Bulldogs because of their training facilities being flooded following the aftermath of the ex-Cyclone Alfred. So the whole team's basically going to be in Sydney for the whole week as we get ready for this clash, which should be pretty interesting to see how the Titans do end up going. But yeah, obviously it's just showing of the damage that has been caused by this storm. And finally, an interesting move here is talking about broadcasting rights, because we love them. It's a big discussion point. But Channel 7 has declared war on Channel 9, as Channel 7 is now going to be hosting a Monday or Tuesday night midweek panel show revolving around rugby league. So essentially, the Matty John show's back. Obviously, the Matty John show, for those who didn't watch back in the day, is famous for Ando being absolutely demolished by Fui Fui Moi Moi, and that's about it. But yeah, it's going to be quite interesting, as there's also going to be move of the Channel 7 brass potentially going in at Channel 9 for the broadcast rights for the free-to-air games. Now, I feel this would be quite interesting if it does happen, but how would this go in terms of a potential clash, obviously, with the AFL? It'd probably be like on 7-2 or 7-8 or whatever. But it's going to be quite an interesting development to see if that does happen. But yeah, but what do you guys think? Do you think Channel 7 should go after Channel 9 and challenge them in the free-to-air market? And what are your thoughts on any of the other stories that have been mentioned today? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all very much for watching. This has been Rugby League Happening. I've been ZTank99, and I'll see you all later.